Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. That's 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in New Hampshire, Oregon, and Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/football.
Welcome in, everyone, to Bear Bets, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. DraftKings Sportsbook is the #1 place to bet touchdowns this season. And this week, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Download and use the app code BearBets, promo code BearBets, 2 words when you sign up. DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours. And the crown is going to be someone's on the night of January the 20th in Atlanta. National championship game where the first 12-team college football playoff has been announced. The Oregon Ducks are the #1 seed and one of a bunch of teams in the mix to with sub 5-1, 4-1 national title hopes. Ducks plus 360, Texas plus 360, Georgia plus 450, Ohio State plus 475. 3 of those teams are on the same side of the bracket, Geoff, and congratulations on your Big Ten championship.
Thank you. It was very enjoyable Saturday night to watch that game in Indianapolis. And yes, Oregon is 13-0. Look, before I get into the Oregon part of this, it is interesting after 1 year, right? I mean, we haven't played a game yet, Bear. There's already talk about changing the structure because it is a structure that does not reward the better teams in the sport, right? Look, Boise State had a great season. Arizona had a great season. But they're ranked 9th and 12th, and they have buys. That doesn't feel like the right system, right? You can win your conference and still be in the tournament. We can talk about that. That's what college basketball does, it, right? You win your conference, you get in the tournament, but then we still seed 1 through 68 or 72 now by the best teams available. So in this case, right, Oregon, Georgia, probably Texas, and someone else gets a bye, and then you just play out the rest of the tournament like you would any other bracket. And like the NFL, you reward the top seeds by reseeding. So the #1 seed is playing the worst team essentially in the quarterfinals. To me, it's not a great system when you have your #1 team, Oregon, could potentially play the #4 team in your odds in the quarterfinal. And people believe Ohio State is talented enough to win the whole thing. It's just mentally right after the Michigan game. It's not great probably that, Texas and Oregon can meet up in the semifinal. You'd like those things to happen
in Dallas.
Later in Dallas, right? And then you would actually, Oregon would play Georgia potentially in Atlanta. Nonetheless, there's no complaining out of Eugene, buddy. Like there's none. They would not complain about this. Absolutely not. The bye is the most important thing. I understand people are going to say, and you're right, that Penn State gets a better draw, but they have to play more games. Oregon gets to sit at home the first weekend, and Tennessee and Ohio State get to have a big physical game and then go to the Rose Bowl and play Oregon. Yep. So, look, the system has to be changed. It is what it is for this season. No one's complaining, Eugene, about it, but very clearly there are flaws to this. And the flaw, by the way, is not Alabama not making the tournament with 3 conference losses. The flaw is not rewarding the better teams in the sport by giving them an easier path through the postseason.
Right. The flaw is, remember the 4-team era where it was, we're not going to put the #1 seed, the higher seed, at a slight disadvantage in their game. Well, they only not did that to Oregon once, but then potentially, just with the national title game, it's going to be twice. So that's what I mean. Like when people get upset about, well, what the #1 seed in the easy path? Let them be. They're not playing by the rules that they've created in the past about how you would not have had Oregon play Texas in Dallas. The game would have been in
Arizona,
MP or Miami or somewhere,
right?
And they're not in Texas's backyard. And the other thing that bothers me a little bit as well is just how Penn State loses to Oregon, loses to Ohio State, and they kind of get the easier side of the draw per se. And it's kind of a little karmic as well that Georgia after having that brutal SEC schedule of Ole Miss, Texas, and Alabama on the road, and playing Clemson. That, in sense, they kind of got the easier path, granted without Carson Beck, and granted with the backup quarterback and the only injuries that they have. But we'll see how it plays out. That's why they play the games, and that's why we have Sammy P and Will Hill to talk about it in the Gambling Group Chat. Welcome back, Bear Bets Podcast. Geoff and I joined again, as we are always, for the Gambling Group Chat by Sammy P and Will Hill. We have one game in the FBS on Heisman weekend here, and then, of course, it is the Army-Navy game, which everybody looks forward to if you are not a college football fan. People still watch this game just out of respect for what Army and Navy do for each of us every single day and what they're going to do in the future. If you have not been to an Army-Navy game, I suggest you go. It is certainly a bucket list type experience for a college football game. I've been fortunate enough to been to a couple of them, and it's awesome from the march in, everything to the post game, the game itself. Highly suggested for you to make one college football pilgrimage to Army-Navy. And this week, we got an Army coming off, a little different Army-Navy game. Army coming off of an AAC championship game, dominating win over Tulane. Navy awaiting playing Oklahoma in their bowl. Army has Marshall coming up in their bowl. I don't always want to default to dog or pass, but I think with the way Navy ended the season with the injury to Horvath, now they've been off, a little bit time to heal. Not that Army's going to have a letdown, of course, after winning a conference title, but 6.5 feels a little high to me, Sammy.
I was looking at the total, Bear. The only thing I care about, this touch 37.5 Wednesday morning. I'm sitting on our show just betting 37.5, not expecting it to go much lower. Boom, 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 boys. Up to 39 right now. Bear, I make the total 47.5. Wow. I think both of these offenses are much better than people think. And guys, understand, this total closed 27.5 last year. Final score 17-11. The books are telling you, Will, there's going to be more offense.
Yep, it's not the typical Army-Navy in terms of the play calls, the play usage. They both throw it more, but I would still lean towards the under just because. If you look at the history of these two teams, 2013 was the last time we had 39 or more points scored in this game. There's a familiarity. There's the intensity. There's the fact that I think both these teams come out a little tight early. So I think it'd be interesting to see where the line moves because sharp movement, as you said, is driven the line up. There was like a 40.5 early in the week. I think people will see Army-Navy and say, hey, this game always goes under. That's the narrative. I do think this will probably, if you like the over, you can probably wait and maybe same as last year where it just tick down to where the point where it's just ridiculously low. I wouldn't be shocked if this closes 36.5, 36, something like that. I like the under. I lean towards under and dog to me is just, how I play these service academies when they play each other. I know, again, this year is a little different, but I'm just trained to think that way when these service academies meet up. By the way, Bear mentions we should have a pilgrimage to Army-Navy. I've never been to the game. I mean, you could have organized a little field trip for the four of us to get together, go check out the game, but God forbid you do anything nice for us.
I'm actually going to be away, down on vacation, going to Florida this weekend, taking the war. My wife's been a good soldier dealing with my travels throughout the entire season, so we'll give her a little weekend in the Keys.
Will, I'll go with you, buddy. Don't worry. We can ignore Sammy and Bear. I like the over, as Sammy mentioned. Army third in the country in points per drive on offense. And you look at Navy, I think they're in the low 30s. And guys, both their quarterbacks have missed games this season, right? Army had a couple games where the quarterback was out. Navy had a couple games. So those are really good drive numbers without their starting quarterback. I think we've seen an up-tempo game, teams throwing the football. It's tough to bet over in these. Will mentioned it. It doesn't go over very often at this number. So kind of have to suck it up and take the over in this spot with the offenses these teams have.
Yeah, that's a great point, Geoff. You look at how great Army's offense looked against Tulane with Daly, and of course we can remember how great the Navy offense looked with Horvath as well. So I would think Sammy might be on to something going over here. Back again, more Gambling Group Chat with Sammy P, Will, Geoff, and myself. The bracket is out. We are not really here now to break down our angst with the bracket or breaks down angst with the seating. Geoff and I did that earlier in the show. Now it's time to spin forward and look at not necessarily the games themselves. We're going to do that next week. Maybe if we have a thought, we'll offer up one of those as well along the way if there's something that we might want to get in before the line moves. But there's so many different derivative markets that we can play here to reach the semi, to reach the final. How many wins by road teams in round one? Will the champ be an automatic qualifier or an at-large? There's so many different things that go in ways to look at this. But I guess like this first one kind of was a little surprising to me. Over-under wins by a road team in round one is under -230, over plus 185. The under seems pretty cheap here, doesn't it? Like on paper, it doesn't look like we're going to get 2 wins by SMU, Indiana, Clemson, and Tennessee, but -230 seems a little cheap to me, Sammy.
I don't see 2 upsets.
That's the thing. I don't.
No, I mean, every spread is north of a touchdown. Now, that doesn't mean that they're all going to win, but I assure you, DraftKings is going to get pounded with 3-leg and 4-leg parlays, just the money lines. And I just put this together. So if you just parlay Ohio State, Notre Dame, Texas, Penn State, all to win. I'm sure the book loves me talking about this. 2-1. It's 2-1. And honestly, like the most likely team to fall is probably Ohio State. So guys, if Notre Dame, Penn State, and Texas win in chronological order,
there you go.
You're holding a 2-1 parlay, and then you can middle it. You can take 7.5 with Tennessee, and you got a 7.5 point middle on the game.
Yeah, the only thing with that is, I mean, we've talked all year how there's no great team parity, there's balance, and it is interesting how this is the complete antithesis of conference championship weekend, where all the games were basically coin flips, 2.5, 3-point spreads. By the way, my middle on SMU, where I had them 18-1 for the conference, and Clemson plus 3.5 was man, I would have killed SMU to go for 2 or cover the kickoff. that was a tough way to go to sleep late Saturday night, man. After that comeback. What were we talking about? Yes, playing these markets. Upsets. I think Clemson can hang. I like them with the points. I think Tennessee's very live plus the points. 2 of them actually winning does feel like a stretch, but I'm not. Am I dying to lay -230? I don't know. I don't think Sammy's idea of just playing all the favorites on the money line is a bad way to approach it, Bear.
Look, so I think we all 3 of us feel pretty comfortable. 4 of us, I should say, in Penn State beating SMU, right? Do we agree on that? I don't think SMU is winning that game.
I think that might be the most likely upset, Geoff.
What is James Franklin as a favorite between 7 and 24 points, Bear? Isn't he like
usually very 90%
very good?
Spread? But I look at that game from against Oregon where the Oregon offense did a lot of really good things. And I'm not saying Jennings is Dylan Gabriel and Rashard Smith and the backs that SMU have or what Oregon has, but they do a lot of similar things, and Rhett Lashley could call some plays. Like, it would not surprise me at all to see SMU go up there and kind of hang around. People are talking about like, it's going to be bitterly cold, the weather in State College. Yeah, it's going to be, but have you been to Dallas in late December? It's not like it's 75 and sunny. Like, I don't think that's a massive deal at all. Like, Penn State should win the game, but it would not surprise me at all to see SMU hang around, bud.
All right, so you think SMU has a chance to win? We all agree that we don't trust Texas, right? A little bit in this game. Now Clemson's not, I don't know, good enough to beat Texas. Ohio State, what are they mentally right now? Right, they lost their rival, but now they're in the they're in this tournament. If they have 1 3-out to start the game, the entire crowd's going to boo them. Like that's going to be a hostile home environment. And Tennessee's very up and down. Right, if they play their best, they could totally win this game. And I think Notre Dame beats Indiana, but I don't know. I like Indiana's coaching staff, right? They have a month to prepare. We can talk ourselves into all these teams upsetting. So to me, laying 2-1, basically for there to be only one upset doesn't feel like a wager I'm going to make. I could talk myself into all these teams winning as underdogs. Tennessee, I just talked about, right? I can see Clemson winning. SMU, I don't, but if you agree that SMU can do that, and then I think, look, I don't think Indiana's going to win. I really don't. I think Notre Dame's bodies will take over 60 minutes, but Indiana could do it. Marcus Freeman has a bad game. They lost to NIU. They could lose to Indiana. So to me, I'm not laying 2-1 on there to be basically one upset out of the 4. I think the over here would be a play I'd rather take.
And what Sammy was saying earlier about parity and no dominant team, you just mentioned, Geoff, Notre Dame lost to a 4-4 MAC team on their home field. Texas hasn't beaten a team all year that's currently ranked. Ohio State lost as a 20-point favorite at home to Michigan. Penn State, another team that is really beat Illinois. Great. So, like, would not surprise me at all to see maybe a couple of more closer games than we thought. There's another really good market out there, which is conference title. Who's going to win the conference? Who's going to win the national championship? An automatic qualifier, a conference title winner, or the field? Now, you look at the 4 automatic qualifiers: Boise, Arizona State, Georgia, and Oregon, of course. Sammy, I forget about Oregon on purpose for Geoff. Like, only Oregon or Georgia really have a chance to win the national title amongst the automatic qualifiers. But is that a bet you feel good, like making, like, or the number 1 and number 2 seed versus the field?
Well, you get Clemson too, right? I believe it's conference.
Oh, that's true.
Champs.
Yes, I take that back. Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's very weird wording to your point. Like, it is. Like, I thought at first it was you get the 4 seeds against everybody else, but it's actually conference champs.
Correct.
Against the at-larges. But the at-larges, guys, were favored. At-larges minus 180. So, you know, if you look at the bracket, you basically get Texas, Ohio State, Tennessee, Penn State, SMU, Notre Dame, and Indiana. And we'll talk about this later. I did bet the Irish at 10-1. I think their path is so much easier. I don't even like Notre Dame. I think my top 5 teams in the country right now are Oregon, Georgia, Texas, Ohio State, Tennessee. 4 of them are on one side of the bracket.
Crazy.
That's insane. So Notre Dame's only tough test, like in the first 2 rounds, is a Georgia team on backup quarterback and with no offense, really. So I think that path is awesome. I would bet the at-large, though. I would. I think minus 180 is a good price. Oregon's path is ridiculous. I like Oregon of all the teams, guys, but Oregon's got to beat Ohio State, Tennessee, then Texas, then Georgia or Notre Dame. It's a joke. It's a joke.
Well,
I think Sammy's way of approaching it. Yeah, go ahead.
So not if Arizona State beats Texas, guys. That's why I'm a big Sun Devil fan over here, sitting in this chair.
Yeah, I think Sammy's way of approaching is probably the best, where, hey, just pick the team you like and just narrow it down instead of trying to get cute with the at-larges versus the versus the automatic qualifiers. And again, I think this is wide open enough where if we had like an Ohio State, Penn State final, I don't think anyone would be shy. I just think there's a lot of options. So you can play the exactas national champion. I think this is a year where, hey, if you have a hunch on a weird final, a weird, team making it or making it to the championship, I think you pull the trigger. I even think, if Clemson were to sneak by Texas, them against Arizona State, and Clemson, I think they're 7-1 to make the semifinal. Like, is it impossible if we see Clemson, who was dead on arrival 10 days ago, they lose a rivalry game at home to South Carolina, they go back to their dorms and Miami's up 21-0, and they say, man, we're done. We're not going to make the ACC title game. And then they get a gift from the gods. Cristobal kicks the field goal. Next thing you know, they're winning the ACC on a last-second field goal. So who knows? This is kind of house money for them. Them making a run wouldn't shock me.
Yes, I think we all kind of agree that this is probably not a market we want to get involved in. They're also like, you can exactly 1 win is plus 140, and then the exactly 2 wins is plus 300. So, like, yeah, again, I don't think it's anything I want to get involved in. And then if you're looking at the short shots for exact matchups, Oregon, Georgia, Texas, both 6-1. Were there any, maybe name the finalist type markets that you guys were potentially looking at? Because it's really kind of hard to isolate someone on top. Like, it's almost like you need to go deep on top, but then if you like Georgia, you stay with them on the bottom. If you don't like Georgia, you stand with somebody else on the bottom. So, but it feels like you kind of need to go deep on that top half of the draw, like we were talking about.
Yeah, I haven't played anything. To me, if you like a team like Sammy pointed out, Notre Dame, you put your future on that team, either to win it or make the final. And you just either play it game by game or team by team, and you go with it that way. And of course, anytime with any of these markets, you math it out. Hey, am I getting a fair price? Just because the book groups it a certain way doesn't mean I'm necessarily getting my best bang for my buck in that market, unless doing it hand by hand manually.
Yeah, I don't think, Geoff, they know how to price Notre Dame either, because we did in the group thread. Yeah. We sent a look-ahead number where they had Notre Dame minus 2.5 against Georgia at DraftKings.
Yep.
Yet, to make the title game, Georgia's plus 150 and Notre Dame is 4-1. Yeah. It just doesn't make sense to me. And we have seen that Irish price, of course, come down since the report came out about Carson Beck and the UCL, and he's out indefinitely. Gunnar Stockton does not scare me. And honestly, I don't think there's an elite team this year. I mean, Oregon's the best, but they're not elite. Nobody's unbeatable. And I saw Barry Horse tweet this, very respected player, just for some context on how dominant the LSU team was in 2019. He said his models have that team with Burrow, Chase, Jefferson, Edwards-Helaire, NFL guys all over the defense. He said that team, he makes 14.5 or better on every team in this year's class. So he's basically saying like anything could happen, and I tend to agree. I wouldn't be surprised by anything.
So if Oregon wins a championship, we'll just have to give it to LSU, I guess. That's so sad that we worry so much about other teams.
I just think we give it to Oregon. I think we just call it
other teams might be better than other years. How sad is that? The other years don't matter. I love this discussion this week. Oh, these teams aren't very good. Yeah, okay, sure. These are 12 teams we have in the postseason. The Notre Dame one is interesting against Georgia. You mentioned it's 2 now, Sammy. Irish here by 2. I see this talking point Georgia fans are saying to me and to us, well, Carson Beck's not very good and the backup's better. Thank you, Bear. Stop. Slow down. Beck's starting for a reason over Stockton. And what happens is when a backup quarterback comes in that situation, what you get is what you saw. You get a defense that says in the locker room, guys, we got to play better. It's on us now to stop Texas, because if we don't stop Texas, we can't come back. And you often see for a quarter or two, a drive or two, the backup quarterback do things Carson Beck's not going to do, right? Carson Beck doesn't scramble. Stockton scramble a little bit more. But then we saw the debilitating turnover that happened, right? Like that is what happens with a backup quarterback. Now, I've been in a spot to play a bowl game, not a playoff game, with a 5th string quarterback. So I know how that feels to go into a game like that.
I loved you guys that day.
Yes.
I loved you.
We won
Sun Bowl.
We won 59-14. It's a great day. But things were on track, right? They worked out like they should. If Georgia goes into a game against the Irish, let's say they win that game, the Irish do in week 1, the first game, I should say, and you have this great game plan laid out, and the first drive, second drive, that Irish defense just punches you in the mouth. Well, that game plan is now gone, and now you're relying on a backup quarterback to do things he has not done in his career at Georgia. So I don't feel comfortable, as Georgia fans do, that, everyone will be fine. Now, I think Georgia's team is fantastic. I think their coaching staff is great. All those things are absolutely true. But Georgia fans seem very confident, Bear, that they're going to be fine. I disagree. Maybe they're fine against Notre Dame, but fine the second week against Penn State, fine against Oregon or Texas, or I don't buy that. So I'd be concerned about placing any future money on Georgia right now.
Bear, I had a guy with a Georgia jersey leaning on a replica of the General Lee from Dukes of Hazzard, telling me I'm soft just like Notre Dame. Like that's the mindset. That's the mindset of the SEC fan. And
is he wrong?
Well, not on the me being soft part, but the SEC has not impressed me this year. I mean, look, Alabama misses the playoff. Ole Miss misses the playoff. You know, the SEC was not dominant this year. And people that think that because Notre Dame got worked by Alabama 12 years ago, that doesn't matter. It also, guys, it doesn't matter that Notre Dame lost to Northern. Does not matter. Nope. Does not matter.
Correct. Well, Sammy, if Alabama didn't have to play Mercer, they'd be in the tournament, obviously, right? I mean, it's that simple. Your out-of-conference slate determines why you lost 3 conference games. Therefore, you can't be into this dance. So, guys, look, as a West Coast football fan,
it's like the point just sailing over everybody's head.
Correct.
With all that, it's incredible.
If Oregon is half as fired up as our boy Geoff, this is not even going to be a competition this tournament. Oregon's just going to roll to the championship. Our boy Geoff is feisty today.
I just want a Cotton Bowl between Arizona State and Ohio State, just to have Sammy be able to have that conversation with all the Sun Devil fans about Ohio State beating ASU by 3 touchdowns.
Well, that means we've lost. So I don't know why you would root for that, Bear. But nonetheless, this is the first year in forever the SEC did not get benefit of the doubt. All I've done is whine. Like it's been my favorite thing about this whole process because for the year, I'm a West Coast guy, obviously. We never got the benefit of the doubt out West. And I get it. The SEC is a better conference than the Pac-12. But the 1 year, guys, that a 3-loss team doesn't make the tournament, all these people do is whine. I can't get enough of it. Just send me your tears, Alabama fans. I'll take them.
Which one of these teams playing next week has the best chance of making the semifinal?
Penn State, right?
Could be Penn State. Could be Texas. I would think you would think maybe the Penn State SMU winner, right? You would think Texas is going to be a double-digit favorite probably in both those games, and that's why I'm asking.
You know what makes me nervous about Texas though is that they're going to go to Arch maybe a little too early. It's such a weird dichotomy there right now at Texas. Arch is probably better right now, and if it were me, I would play Arch from the get-go. Make it clear Arch is our guy. You know Quinn's gone. It doesn't matter. They've been nice to Quinn, maybe a little too long. But what happens when Quinn has a tough first quarter or a tough first half, and then you throw Arch into the mix, and he's got to go up and deliver and pull them back from the deficit? I think it's a very weird situation, you know, and if you have two quarterbacks, you have no quarterback. I don't know, because, you know, behind the scenes, they are building a team around Arch. Like, this recruiting class coming in and the year after is for Arch. The future is all about Arch, but Arch is on the bench, even though he probably gives them a better chance to win. It's wild. Quinn Ewers did not impress me in the SEC title game.
If that is the matchup though, Texas Arizona State, that's a really bad matchup for Arizona State, because Arizona State needs to run the ball and they won't be able to run it on Texas with their defensive line.
Agreed. Which then, of course, we potentially get an Oregon Texas Cotton Bowl matchup in Dallas. Any of these other games potentially? Before we segue on to anything else, is there anything else in the playoff that anyone wants to get off their chest in terms of a game or a bet or anything anybody's made that we don't necessarily want to wait on until next week?
I think the Ohio State offensive line and all their injury issues against the Tennessee front is not a good matchup for the favorite for Ohio State. And, you know, Jeff alluded to it. I thought Herbstreit did a good job on the selection show, which I think still might be going on. Man, they took us a long time to tell us what teams were in. If you go 3
just
and
had
out,
to listen to Brett McMurphy right off the bat.
Oh my goodness, I guess so. If you go 3 and out and the crowd starts to turn on you, I don't know how that goes, but I just think the Tennessee front will give Ohio State fits. Ohio State couldn't run the ball in Michigan. They really didn't run it on Indiana before that game got out of control with the punt that was dropped and the punt returned. They got like 1 40-yard run. Other than that, they still were at 4 yards per play, even with the explosive run or two. And Tennessee, look, maybe their offense is starting to come together. They were 7.5 yards per play against Vandy, so maybe the time off they could start to gel. It's a unit we all had high hopes for coming into the season. I think that's a very, very competitive game. I like getting the hook there.
You're getting Sully's hopes up right now, yeah. Will. You're getting our producers' hopes way up too much. You got to like promise little and over deliver. Under promise.
What do you think though? You've been around college football for a long time, and the weather is going to be a factor, and we're still 10, 11 days out, so that's hard to determine. Right. But will these road teams, will their fan bases travel? Will it be true home field advantage? How is that going to work?
I think it's probably going to be like a regular season type game with ticket allotments. You're probably going to get like 12,500, 15,000 tickets or whatever. And I don't know the answer. That's my guess. Yeah. We certainly can look it up, and I'm sure somebody on Twitter will tell us after. But I would think you probably get like your normal 12,500, 15, and then whatever you can get on the secondary mark. But you know, Tennessee fans will certainly travel.
The last part about this game, guys, I know we're going to talk more about X and O's next week, is out of the 8 coaches that are coaching in the opening weekend or opening quarterfinals, opening weekend, it does feel like Ryan Day is coaching for his job a little bit out of the 8 coaches, right? I mean, if they lose this game, if they lose to Michigan and Tennessee comes into their place as a touchdown underdog, or they lose this game, I think he's still the coach. I think Bear agrees with me, but a lot of people don't call for his job. I mean, like, he's coaching for his job in this game, which is wild to say, to be a playoff team and coaching for your job. There's just a lot of pressure on Ohio State to get this done. Are they going to design a game plan now focused on passing the football when they can't really pass protect? Yeah, but they can't. Bear, they can't pass protect potentially in this game. So that's part of the concern about why they're not throwing the ball, I think, is they don't trust their offensive line. So lots of things with this game. I can't wait to discuss it more next week. We kind of break down the X's and O's of it. I can't figure out, guys, who I want Oregon to play either. I haven't figured that part out yet. I'll have an answer for you next week.
But thank you. Yeah, I did make a couple of bets. I bet Notre Dame, Indiana under 51. I bet Tennessee, Ohio State under 47.5. as well, just kind of echoing on a lot of what we're talking about in terms of those matchups. But there are some other games. One of the other games which I'm really interested about is the Gator Bowl, because you've got Ole Miss as a massive favorite against Duke. Malik Murphy just went into the portal, and you got Ole Miss who, I'm going to say crying, complaining, whatever, feeling like it should have been in the playoff. And this is a fascinating study in psychology, because you got Duke with an opportunity as a big dog to win 10 games for the second time in school history. And on the other hand, you got Ole Miss. And I think Jackson Dart is going to play, but who the heck knows how many of those guys on defense are going to play the NFL first round, second round prospects that are going to go early in the draft. Do they all opt out? What ultimately happens with that? And you would think if they do, then maybe Duke is worth the play. But there's one thing with Lane Kiffin here that I think you need to kind of be aware of and maybe keep in the back of your mind, that Duke is an SMU opponent. And obviously Lane is pissed off beyond belief that SMU is in the playoff and Ole Miss is not. They struggled mightily with Duke. SMU beat Duke on a field goal in overtime of like a missed PA, whatever the hell it was. Lane will absolutely, in my opinion, be motivated to beat Duke by as many points as he can, just to kind of say, I told you so. So again, I ultimately don't know what the opt-out list is going to look like, but I would kind of lean right now towards Ole Miss actually showing up in this game, because I mean, look, this is all bowl season is turned into right now, Sammy. It's just who opt out, the list of quarterbacks you sent alone is ridiculous.
I've got make that 18 quarterbacks now with Mendoza today. And then I just added Tyler Shook as we started our pre-pro meeting for the show. I saw that Tyler Shook is going to attend his 17th college in the last 5 years. So he's out. He's not going to play for Louisville. And then Mendoza earlier today. We've already heard, Malik Murphy's out. He transferred, entered the portal. So Duke's quarterback is out. It'll be Henry Bellin. He's going to start for Duke. I have Dart probable, and they've said all the right things. I just don't believe guys like Jackson Dart and Cam Ward. I don't know why Cam Ward would play in that game, 248 Miami, in the Pop-Tarts Bowl, unless he grew up like the biggest Pop-Tarts guy in the world. I don't understand why he would risk top 10 pick, millions of dollars. I don't understand it. You're going to hate this, Bear. I bet Duke 5-1 on the money line. I get what you're saying.
It's okay.
I understand it. I made a small bet on Duke to win the game at 5-1. These teams that missed the playoff, it used to be 2 teams, then it was 4 teams, now it's 12. I think you're going to see a lot of guys just not give a damn. A lot of guys at Ole Miss are going to leave for the NFL. We'll see, because the portal, remember this, the portal started on the 9th, and it goes until the 28th. This game is on January 2nd. We've seen the shoe drop at Duke, Will, with Murphy and some other guys. But what happens if the other foot drops on Ole Miss and 10 guys are leaving for the NFL or transfer? I mean, this line is not going to be 16, and the money line won't be minus 700 anymore.
I would be, before you go, well, like you talk about Duke 5-1, I'd be looking at Michigan on the money line as well. The direction of that program is going with Brandon Underwood. You beat Ohio State at the end of the year. You played Indiana tough. You blew out Northwestern. Like, their trajectory right now is up. And the same kind of situation there. You've got Alabama not in the playoff, disappointed. Who knows if Milroe is going to play? You could have a lot of opt-outs there. Michigan money line would be another way to go, because I'll have the numbers either in the column or on next week's pod about how you just, like, if you're going to take an underdog, it's always better to take him in bowl season on the money line, because usually you do get a bigger bang for your buck, Will.
Speaking of which, last year, it was right around Christmas, all those bowls. I remember DraftKings did a promotion where they boost your parlay, the more legs you add. It was a small max wager, 25, 50 bucks. And I threw like 6, 7, maybe 8 teams, all underdogs, all on the money line. But then I threw in the over of Georgia Tech, Syracuse, and that over was the only loser. All of the other dogs won. These dogs did really, really well. Now, there was one spread. I didn't include this. There was like a 19-point spread. I forget the game where one of the team's just completely checked out. But these teams, 5, 6, 7, 8-point underdogs, it's all guesswork. Who's going to play? Sometimes these guys enter the transfer portal and they still play, which adds another dimension, to the curveball of all this. So to me, I'm going to have a very hard time laying the points. If nothing else, even if you're going to split your bet, 60, 40, 70, 30, you definitely take some on the money line. I think underdogs are going to be very live. It's just, man, these have always been exhibition games, but these were always exhibition games where the players cared, the coaches cared. That's going out the window. I mean, they have to put a line on all these games, which is the advantage that we have over the books. We don't have to bet all these games. They have to put a line on all these games. These games are very, very difficult to line. I'm sure if you guys, Sammy, you talk to these bookmakers, putting a spread out for these games, very, very challenging because we don't know who's in, who's out, and how much they're going to care.
Well, they're guessing, and Geoff, you can speak to this too, because Cal, a week ago, Wilcox comes out and says Mendoza will return.
Yeah.
A week ago. 7 days ago, he says Mendoza will be back.
Yeah.
Well, what happened this morning? As Cal climbed all the way out to 4.5 on 3 Sports reports, Mendoza's entering the portal. The books took the head coach at his word, and that line went from Cal -1 to Cal -4.5.
Yeah.
And look at the line now, back to Cal -1, because the books believe the coach. I think the lesson is, guys, you can't believe anything during bowl season.
And then another transfer, Derry Mensah, the Tulane quarterback, he's out. And again, Florida, another team, momentum at the end of the year, but you really want to lay that many points against Tulane, who's going to be starting a backup quarterback. Some are all staying. Such a big study in amateur psychology here.
I do think fading coaches that leave too is probably not the worst practice. Like you say, hey, this coach is leaving for another job. Probably not the worst idea to put that number in your pocket and just fade that team and see where the line goes. That's probably not a bad habit to get into, because usually when the coach goes, that's when the players follow.
An addendum to the portal quickly. You can enter after your team plays. So December 28th is the mark for like everyone. You have a bowl game after that or a playoff game. So you can play up to January 20th, obviously, and enter 5 days after your final game. So there can be transfer portal players going all the way up to the end of January. So guys can play in the game and then transfer. Feels unlikely to happen. But also we have players that are, Deion Sanders has said Shedeur and Travis are going to play. And we saw last year that there were some teams like Oregon, for example, that played their starters, starters play in that game. Do I believe Deion? I think I do, but would it surprise me if we got to game day and Shedeur didn't play? No. Like, how do you wager on a game like that? There's one other spot that I sort of like. We're kind of 2 spots, but one is the G5 team playing the Power 5 team. That G5 team wants to win that game. Now, you have to make sure the quarterback's playing and the coach is still there. But if those things are happening, those G5 teams want to beat the Power 5 team, Power 4 team, essentially. It doesn't matter how good that Power 4 team is. If they're 6-6, that group of 5 team wants to win that game. They're motivated to win that game. And on the other side, that other team's probably not as motivating. And the other thing I like to see every now and then is sort of like young quarterback playing. So, for example, Washington is probably going to start their young quarterback. Why play Will Rogers against Louisville? And Tyler Shuck is going to the NFL, Sammy, not portal, which is funny, but he might have portal. Who knows? Cam Rising, by the way, game time decision to play in their bowl game. Like I sort of like Washington in that spot, right? Like young quarterback, young roster. Their defensive coordinator probably going to North Carolina with his dad. But so those are 2 spots I like, right? G5 team playing Power 4 team and sort of young quarterback that might not have a lot of film on him, sort of getting on audition for the next season.
I was going to say one that's going to be popular is UConn against UNC, just because, hey, UNC, new coach, UConn's going to be motivated. You remember earlier in the year, Mora made comments about, hey, when you play an ACC school like that, all the, the big conference gets the calls. Man, I don't know. With Belichick likely coming in and just the talent that UNC has versus the talent UConn has, that might be a little cheap on UNC. I think UConn's going to be a trendy underdog pick. I'm not so sure. I think that's the Fenway Bowl. And by the way, we got a little breaking news. That's going to be Garrett Crochet's new home. I saw that. Yeah, listeners, because he was just acquired. But I think the UNC line might be a little cheap there.
Wow, that's
the Red Sox. Yeah,
the White Sox. So let me get the White Sox could have traded him at the deadline,
correct,
for a hell of a lot more than probably what they got right now. Would be by.
But then we couldn't fade. Then we couldn't fade every time.
No
he
White
pitched,
Sox
though.
slander on the show.
You were told incorrectly.
Sammy, who moved the Baylor LSU line? I saw that Baylor got hit from 3 to 1.5.
I don't know who bet that one, but I can tell you who bet the Army and Marshall game because I was a part of it. Did you guys see the report this morning that Marshall's entire team might be entering the portal?
It doesn't surprise
Well, the coach left, right? Didn't he leave to Southern Miss?
Yep.
He left.
Yes.
He left the conference champ
Yeah.
to go to the team that finished 0-8 in conference
Bear,
in the same conference.
Bear, can you explain that to me? That was I understand when coaches leave, like I get it, but most like upgrade this. Why would he go to Southern Miss? Is there a connection
I don't
there?
know.
Like I looked it up. I didn't see a connection.
No
Obvious
idea.
connection. Huh, it's interesting.
I have no idea. That has not been a good job for a while, and Marshall has kind of been a pretty respectable type G5 program. So I don't get it, but I'm sure he has his reasons.
Can you imagine if they don't play, if Marshall dresses 30 guys, how bad are they getting curb stomped in that game?
Badly.
Badly. Last thing on North Carolina quickly. How does the Bill Belichick era end in Chapel Hill? Oof. Does it end with like a conference championship? My favorite part about all of this, by the way, is that this manifesto that he presented to North Carolina, like it's a brand new thing in college football.
Yeah, exactly.
That there's an organization of a team, like a pro team. Texas does it. Oregon, Ohio State, A&M, Florida. Like they have the coaching staff and they have like a front office like they do in the NFL because now obviously it's transactional like it is in the National Football League. And I just love that this is a revolutionary thing he brought to North Carolina, that there's structure and organization. I think it ends, I think he probably wins 8 or 9 games a couple times. I don't see ACC championship.
I don't like to bet against him. I just wish he was bit, and we'll see what kind of staff he brings. But some of the reports, like he's bringing Matt Patricia with him. I was like, does Matt Patricia really know like about college football and NIL and how to recruit? I don't know. I guess.
And all those spread offenses.
To be fair, his son did really well Washington this season. I did not expect that.
Absolutely.
I did not expect that. And his son did a very good job making that defense against, of course, Oregon, very presentable a lot of times this season.
And I think that there'll obviously be the detractors out there that want to point out what his record was without Tom Brady as a starting quarterback, under 500, right? Wasn't it like a 489 win percentage in his career as a head coach without Tom Brady as his quarterback? So, I mean, again, it's the whole chicken and egg argument. Did Belichick make Brady? Did Brady make Brady? So it's out there. But like, I think if you want to kind of just figure out why he's this means he wasn't getting an NFL job and he knew he wasn't getting an NFL job. And good for him. He wants to coach. It's not a situation. You saw Jim Harbaugh go to his alma mater, win a national championship, and good. I'm happy. Our sport is better with this storyline with a 8-time winning Super Bowl coach is an assistant and as the head coach going to North Carolina, a school that a lot of people have thought has kind of been a sleeping giant for a while now, and a couple of 10-win seasons, but haven't quite gotten to the level people thought they would. Any reason to bet Ashton Jeanty at like plus 900, plus 1,000 at the couple of places that he's still up to win the Heisman Trophy this weekend, or do we think it's a formality this weekend?
Unless you're like a hot shot and you have 60 to 1 and you want some security and you want to be able to sleep at night without having to worry. I don't think there's any realistic. I wouldn't be surprised if Jeanty won. I'd be shocked if Jeanty won. I don't know if you guys agree or not. Wait,
do you guys have Travis Hunter tickets? I wasn't aware. Does this show have Travis Hunter bets?
We haven't mentioned it yet this week.
Oh. Is it to that point though where we're starting to get a little nervous that it's too good to be true?
Of course.
I'm so nervous.
Of course we are. But the interesting thing is, and I was thinking about this as well, with just the way the Heisman voting is, like, it's unfortunate for Jeanty that like in the region of the country he's in is where the favorite is. So like you need to like dominate your particular region, and he's not even going to do that. And how many people nationally are gonna, like, if you're an SEC, a Southeastern voter, or a Northeastern voter, or Texas, like, are you gonna vote for him, or are you gonna vote for Travis Hunter or quarterbacks?
And I think the fact that he's such a big favorite, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy where even people that are on the fence, or like we know there's certain Heisman voters that are sort of detached from the sport. They see, oh, Hunter's a big favorite. I'm not sure who to vote for. Now I know I vote for Hunter because it's like the right thing to do. So I think there is a self-fulfilling prophecy nature to it.
I think you're right with that. We'll ultimately see what happens on Saturday night, if there is any drama at all. But I do know that we will be back next week.
FCS.
Oh, FCS.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Go
I
ahead,
totally
buddy.
forgot. We got FCS playoffs this week.
Also, speaking of Heisman finalists, shout out to Jordan Lynch, another state championship at Mount Carmel High School in Chicago. He was Heisman finalist back in the day.
That's right. Number 10, Northern Illinois.
Mount Carmel wins its third straight state title. I got the shirt on here, built on Dante. Anyways, Geoff did not bet this game last week, and it still won 42-10. UC Davis
Massive line move.
Well, the line moves so much. Yeah, I forgot to bet it on time, but I have my app open right now, so
I had a guy ask me, should I lay 11? And I was like, no, you shouldn't. And then he was mad that he didn't lay 11 because he won 42-10. The bet on Saturday is 308-902 South Carolina State against Jackson State in the Celebration Bowl. He likes the dog, plus 1.5.
Celebration Bowl. Okay.
Jackson State, I think, beat Southern last week. I think it was big one over Southern. So it's SC State versus Jackson State Celebration Bowl. I think that's one of the earlier games on the day. Usually that's like a noon kick, I think.
12 noon. We're on the dog. South Carolina State.
Perfect.
Let's get it.
We will go get it. Absolutely. We'll go get it next week as well, with some more gambling group chat as we continue to break down both the college football playoff and the other bowls where we may have some thoughts. Thanks, guys.
Back from a gambling group chat. Bear, I did lock in the FCS wager for those that are curious this week. I did not do it last week because it got too late, but it's up now. Yep. It's got plus 1.5. So make sure to watch it. It was Celebration Bowl, we determined.
Yep.
So this weekend.
SC State, I like it.
I always love those plays from Sammy. All right, let's get to our fade and best bet. I'm not going to do a fade this week because bowl games are difficult. We talked about that. And I love to fade Tennessee just to piss off our producer, but we have next week to do that. So we're going to do a best bet for this week. I do have a best bet. I like Memphis -3 in the Frisco Bowl against West Virginia for all the reasons we talked about earlier about bowl games, right? We have a Memphis team who just beat Tulane on Thanksgiving, who wants to be in this game and wants to beat a Power 4 team in West Virginia. Most of their players, Bear, are playing in this game. Not a lot of transfer portal players, and they have a very good football team. West Virginia, on the other side, has a coach fired. We don't know who's playing, who's not playing. Players in the portal. Their AD said they want to play an early bowl game to get this year over with and get ready for next season. They're interviewing. I saw Brian Hartline's being interviewed. We know Andy Kolnicki was interviewed. Like, they're not worried about this bowl game. Memphis wants to win this game, Bear. Also worth noting, Memphis has won their last 3 bowl games by a good margin, including beating Iowa State last season by 10. Could be Memphis -3 in the Frisco Bowl.
Yeah, I was going to say they beat Iowa State last year. The game really wasn't particularly close.
No.
But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what winds up happening with that West Virginia coaching job, if it is going to be Hartline, if it is going to be someone else. But yeah, that is a program and always seems to be profitable to fade a lot of those teams that are looking for new coaches, and the staff is out there looking for jobs as well. So I like that. Curious what's going to happen with that, what your Tennessee fade could be if you wind up fading them next week. It seems like the Vols are a very popular side. You might not get as good of a number next week. But I did not get as good of a number here on my best bet as I got in real life. I bet for my DraftKings Sportsbook best bet of the week in the Indiana Notre Dame game. I bet under 51.5. It is now 51, which is still fine. Basically, it could be a push as opposed to a loss. But talked a little bit about it in the gambling group chat. I don't think either offense is going to go up and down the field here. I think if you look at Indiana, the 2 best defenses that they have played this year, Michigan, Ohio State, couldn't run the ball on Michigan, had 150 yards offense against Ohio State, and a majority of that came either in garbage time or in that first scripted opening drive of the game. But at the same time, I don't know how much Notre Dame is going to be able to throw the ball up and down the field. Their receivers do not strike fear into anyone. And Indiana's defense actually played okay against Ohio State. So we'll see if Leonard and Love and that Notre Dame offense will be able to get some push and run the ball. I think it's going to make for some long drives, some time-consuming drives potentially, maybe a lot of empty drives, and under 51 was the way that I played one of the first-round college football playoff games. Indiana at Notre Dame next Friday. Under 51, my best bet of the week, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Jeff's best bet, of course, as he said, Memphis -3 going to West Virginia. We'll be back next week with all of the college football playoff talk and maybe some other bowl talk as well, as things begin to come clearer, and who's playing, who's not, who's staying, who's going. So appreciate everybody, as always, for downloading on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Checking us out on that Bear Bets YouTube channel as well on the digital side. And of course, check us out on FS1. We need some good ratings here on FS1. So you see our pretty graphics and this nice bright new camera I have here. We'll be back next week with all of the college football playoff talk, other bowls as well, as we figure out who's coming, who's going, who's not, who's playing, and etc. Jeff, Will, Sammy, I'm Bear. Remember, the less you bet, the more you lose when you win.